everybody, this is Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff, and it's time for part 3 of the Galaxy S4 in-depth review. I had a little bit of network issues, so I'm sorry for the delay, but nonetheless, here we go. I'm going to be primarily talking about the processors, the Exynos version versus the Snapdragon version. I also wanted to address some of the issues that people are having with the phone, such as overheating. And I also wanted to talk about some of the cool features, so let's go and check all that stuff out. To start off with, I'd like to talk about the CPUs on both of these devices. Right here we have the Samsung SGH i337. This is the AT&T version of the i9505 or the Snapdragon. And on this side we have the i9500, which is the Exynos model. The CPU on the Snapdragon model is clocked at 1.9 gigahertz. It is quad core with 2 gigs of RAM. This guy also has 2 gigs of RAM, both of them which have LPDDR3 RAM, which is actually a lot faster than LPDDR2. And then for the Exynos version, this model is octa-core. It actually has 2 different clusters. You have one 4-core cluster that is clocked at 1.6 gigahertz. Those are the ARM A15s. And then you have the 4 A7 cores, which are clocked at 1.2 gigahertz, and those are meant to be very power efficient. So never are you running 8 cores at the exact same time. You're either running one cluster or the other. So if the phone needs to be doing something that's higher power, you're going to be using the A15s, and then it should go back down to the A7s. The number one question that I've been asked so many times with both of these devices is which one is better, especially let's talk about just in terms of the CPUs right now. This is Quadrant. Benchmarks are so cliche and they only tell a very small part of the story. But heck, anyway, I'm just going to be showing you what they say for Quadrant for CPU. The Snapdragon version says 39,723, while the Exynos CPU score says 41,873. One thing that I would really like to remark about both of these devices is that they are outstandingly similar in performance. I honestly feel that the 4 Crate cores on the Snapdragon version running at 1.9 gigahertz are very closely matched with the 4 Cortex A15 cores running at 1.6 gigahertz. So they are so close in performance in actuality that it's hard for me to distinguish huge differences. While the Exynos version does take the slight bit of a lead, I think that depending on the country that you are from, you'll be happy to get either model. As for smoothness, I think that both devices are quite smooth. The thing that I hear people complaining about mostly, though, would be some lagging or jitteriness. Both of these phones display some lag or jitteriness. On my Snapdragon version, I particularly see it when I'm opening up applications. The animations will kind of stutter a little bit and then open. Sometimes it will do this, sometimes it won't do this. It's kind of a mixed bag of tricks. I shut it down, I'm going to try it again. And at this current moment, it's actually pretty smooth. In this particular case, with the jitteriness with animation, Samsung has not released a fix to my knowledge yet, and people are complaining about both devices exhibiting such a thing. A workaround for this, it's not a fix, but a workaround would be to go and to disable these animations. Although I think that once you do that with no animations, opening up applications looks quite jarring. But if you can't stand stuttering, it is an option. So you need to go under Developer Options. And then underneath Developer Options, you need to go pretty much down to the bottom where you see Window Animation Scale, Transition, and Animator. And then you can go ahead and just turn everything off. Once you do this, there's going to be no transition or fade out. It's just boom, very jarring. Again, I think it kind of ruins the feeling of the phone. And also, whenever you open up an application, it's not instantaneous, so I feel like the animations give it a little bit of a transition, and that really helps in keeping it not look so jarring. But again, it is a partial solution for now. If you are annoyed by any responsiveness with your home button, such as when you hit it, and it just takes a little bit, there's a tad bit of lag for it to actually respond, I recommend disabling S-Voice from being able to execute from double tapping on your home button. And heck, if it's bothering you and you don't use it, just disable it altogether. To get rid of Samsung plague applications that just cause a lot of really nice jitteriness, find S-Voice, go ahead, open it up, go into Settings, then you can see Open via the Home key. It says to double press. Make sure to uncheck that. So now, boom, more responsive. Not having to wait for a millisecond for my home button to kick in. And since I completely detest S-Voice, I'm just going to go into Application Manager. I'm going to find it underneath my All. I will select it and hit disable. Okay, bye-bye. And it's not going to be showing up anymore in my application tray, and it won't be any more bothersome. Another thing that I see as a pity is the lagginess with the camera application. It's not something that I am seeing as a problem with the Snapdragon version, but I am certainly seeing it with the Exynos version, and sometimes the phone even crashes. So let's go ahead and power this puppy up. Viewfinder. So actually that was a pretty good speed. I shut it down. Let's go ahead and show this again. Done. So this one lags a little bit behind, but sometimes it lags an incredible length. And sometimes it freezes, like I mentioned, and then it doesn't restart itself and you might have to restart the phone. I don't know what is going on with that. I don't even think that Samsung really understands what's going on with that, because there's been several updates so far and it has not fixed the problem. Also, if your phone is lagging a lot, you can try disabling all of the S features that work with the S sensors. Things like Air View, Air Gesture, Smart Stay, Smart Scroll, Smart Pause. In the past, some people have reported that has made a little bit of a difference, so go ahead and try that as well. Now moving on to the GPUs, that is where I feel that both of these phones stand out the most, and this is where the Galaxy S4 Exynos version shines. Right now we have Epic Citadel that's been executed, and on the top here is the Exynos version. The GPU is the PowerVR SGX 544 MP3 processor. It's clocked at 533 megahertz versus the GPU on the Snapdragon version, which is Adreno 320. It's clocked at 450 megahertz. What I am seeing between both of these is that the frame rates are a lot better on the Exynos version. And since the frame rates are better, games generally look a lot smoother, content looks a lot smoother, and I really appreciate that. I notice in gameplay sometimes with the Snapdragon version that I'll see a little bit of jitteriness and some frame drops that happen quite quickly, and then it will pick back up again. And it gets a little bit annoying for me. So when I am playing with the Exynos version, I don't see any such thing. Everything stays very, very nice and smooth, and the frame rates are just great. So we can go ahead and run a benchmark in Epic Citadel. So in general, I'm getting about 60 frames per second, where I'm getting about 50 on here. So it's a 10 frame per second difference at some points, and it's enough to notice. So here we have the results here. This is the Exynos version, 43.9 frames per second average, and this is 37.7 frames per second average. In general, I noticed the biggest difference when it's a 10 frame per second difference. If you are somebody who is a massive gamer and must have everything very smooth, I would go with the Exynos version. The Adreno 20 on the Snapdragon version is no slouch. It really is very great, but there's just something that's just a little bit nicer and smoother about the Exynos version with the PowerVR SGX 544 MP3 processor. One issue with the Galaxy S4 that I do see quite a bit is the fact that they do heat up quite quickly and to quite hot temperatures. I've only been running Epic Citadel for a few minutes, and I have a thermometer right here. This is an infrared thermometer, and over a couple of minutes I'm going to be showing you the temperatures here. So here we have the Exynos version. This is the hottest point on the phone. You can see it says 43.7. That's actually not too bad just yet. And we've also got a 43.7 for the Snapdragon version, so they're about the exact same temperature right now. I am now pointing the thermometer at the displays. You can see that the displays get quite hot too. So a lot of people will complain during phone calls that both of these phones get pretty hot. Now also, since the displays get quite warm as well, people get a little bit disturbed after a while of touching the touchscreen and working on it when it's really hot outside or when the processors are at their full speed. Right now I've just got 47.1 degrees Celsius or 117 degrees Fahrenheit for the Exynos version. And on the Snapdragon version I'm getting 46.3. What I'm starting to see, I did run this benchmark for about an hour, so just say for an hour of gameplay, I noticed that this guy had gotten to 52 degrees Celsius. That is incredibly hot. It seems that my Snapdragon version is staying anywhere from about 5 to 10 degrees cooler. So I think that the Exynos version has a little bit more trouble staying cooler. You're starting to feel the heat all around in here because this is where your main board is. You've got your SoC here, which is comprised of your CPU and also your GPU. Where I'm feeling it the hottest is right about here, but at the same time, like I mentioned, it gets pretty scalding hot around where you talk on the phone. The good thing though is that they've done a pretty good job with keeping the battery fairly cool. I usually don't see it go over 40 degrees Celsius. And yes, actually, that goes for both versions, the Snapdragon and the Exynos. During gameplay or heavy usage of this phone, I don't see that to be a problem where it heats up, because you do have the processors that are going quite a bit. What people are worrying about most is that all they're doing is browsing the web, and it's getting quite hot after several minutes. One thing that you need to pay attention to is even though you're just doing a lowly task like web browsing, it's using both the GPU and the CPU, and if you are outside using 4G or 3G, of course you're going to be getting the phone quite hot. So yes, I perceive that both of these phones get quite hot. It looks like the Exynos version gets a little bit hotter than the Snapdragon version. 50 degrees Celsius is pretty hot. Now, since the battery isn't overheating, I'm not too worried about any damage. But if you are wanting a phone that doesn't get so hot, I did the same tests with the HTC One, and the heat is dispersed all over the phone because it is metal. It's better at conducting heat away from the CPU and the GPU. As a result of metal pulling that heat away from the SoC, you do feel it quite a bit on the metal here. But still, I haven't seen it get over 40 degrees or so. So I say that the HTC One definitely does a better job at keeping the phone cool. So the next question will probably be, is there a fix for this problem? So far, I haven't seen any fixes to it. Some people claim that when they get a different ROM that it's doing much better and it's not heating up. And then another person with the exact same ROM will say the opposite. It all depends on your usage. I can't possibly tell you what's making the phone overheat particularly, because it can be anything. It can be just your usage. It can be that it's really hot outside. That's one thing. Don't ever keep your phone in direct sunlight. Also, if you are in summer versus winter, you're more likely going to be having more of an overheating problem than in the winter, because the ambient temperature outside is a lot cooler. So will there be a fix for this particular problem? I really don't think this is something that software can fix. It's hardware. You've got a lot of processors that are very powerful, and it's all in this one little area. But at least when you are holding the phone, if you keep your hand around the battery area, it's not so bad. A remark that I should make is that I love Exynos, and I love that it's a little bit more powerful than the Snapdragon version, especially when it comes to the GPU. It is just so smooth. My general favorite has been the Exynos version, but since I have seen some instability issues such as the camera lagging and even the camera crashing, causing the phone to freeze and restart, or sometimes you have to restart it on your own, I'm not sure what is going on with this particular version. It seems that the more stable version of the phone right now is the Snapdragon. If you sense any outstanding issues with the Exynos version of the phone, don't hesitate to exchange it to get another one. Now, as for the version of Jelly Bean that you have on here, you have the latest version, which is Jelly Bean 4.2.2. You do get all the Jelly Bean features that you get with vanilla Android, so if you drag downward, you can add some different applications as widgets on top of the lock screen. If you click the Add button, you do have a set amount of applications that Google allows you, as well as some third-party apps. I did install HD widgets for phones. I do have ability for my Bible app as well. You can see that I have also these third-party sticky note apps for Color Note. Otherwise, you have your email. You've also got Google Keep, Google Now. You've got the ability to see your Google Plus posts, messaging, music. You can see that there's a place for power toggles, Samsung Music, Watch On. So I think that's actually quite functional. But in all honesty, I'd probably just unlock my phone and access it from the launcher screen. It is a nice touch, though, that if you drag downward and go to the right, that you can have the option to put a bunch of shortcuts. In the original vanilla Jelly Bean, you only have the camera application, whereas on here you can see that there's several different options, and you can edit them as well. It is also possible to personalize your banner here. Simply just pull downward. You'll see that there is a pen that comes up. Click on that pen icon. And then you can type anything that you want in here. You can also change the color and the font. You can also decide to activate or deactivate the date and the time on here. So I think that's quite nice. Also, you have the ability to keep this light effect here, or you can change it back to what you had on the Galaxy S3, which was the ripples. Also, just like on vanilla Android, if you drag with one finger downward, you have access to your status area. And if you use two fingers at the same time, you end up being brought to your quick toggles. You're able to edit this and just change them in any order that you would like. So now when I pull this down again, I can see that I have reordered them. Widgets and icons move around by themselves, so you don't have to move them around. They will try to make room. One thing that I am finding grossly unfair is that some versions of the Galaxy S4 don't have this auto brightness offset. So here you have auto brightness off, and of course you can turn the brightness up and down. But on the Exynos version that I'm having right here, if I hit auto brightness, you can see that there is now this middle line here. And if I grab this, I can actually change the auto brightness. So I can offset it a few ticks above where it wants to be automatically. So if I find that the auto brightness is too low, then I can, of course, offset it a little bit. So that's a really nice setting, especially because I'm seeing that the auto brightness is too low sometimes for me. So thanks for that, Samsung. The biggest difference that I am seeing in Jelly Bean 4.2.2, which is not actually a feature of Jelly Bean 4.2.2, is move applications to SD card. This is actually something that Samsung re-added. It was taken away entirely with Ice Cream Sandwich, and since there were so many people complaining that there was just not enough room, not enough storage on the phone, Samsung just had to do something. In general, with the Galaxy S4, there is only about 9 gigabytes of free storage after everything, including system files and everything that the phone needs to run. So you only have 9 gigabytes of free space to install all of your applications. It is originally 16 gigabytes, but you don't get all of that room, and that was making a lot of people panic. The problem is that this is not a perfect solution. You can move only some applications onto the SD card. Android can only move 50 megabyte APK files onto the SD card, but the rest of it will remain on the phone. So just say that you downloaded something like Need for Speed. Fine, you can move the actual application file onto the SD card, but all that rest of it that you ended up having to download extra will stay on the phone. It will not move onto the SD card. So in that case, you're going to need a program like GL to SD, and then that's going to take the rest of the expansion, all those extra files, it will move it onto the SD card, and then you can use GL to SD to do bind mount. Please check out the link in the description. I actually made a video all about bind mount and GL to SD, so you can see what actually is going on there. So yes, while you can clear up some space, if you have applications that are over 50 megabytes in size, you can see why move to SD is a little bit pointless. I do thank you, Samsung, though, for trying something. The real solution is actually to have a very big internal storage. So if you're going to be getting the Galaxy S4 and you are a big gamer and there's a lot of games on the Android market that you want to play on your phone with this power horse, then I recommend getting either the 32 or the 64 gigabyte version. Another thing that people have been asking me about is what's going to happen with the Nexus versions of the Galaxy S4. Also, again, what would happen with the Nexus version of the HTC One? The Galaxy S4 Google Edition is only going to come in the Snapdragon version, so if you had some type of wishes to get the Exynos version, that's never going to happen. Now, what I am recently finding out is that even though this is going to be called a Nexus Edition or Google Play Store Edition of the Galaxy S4, Google is not going to be the one issuing updates. They're giving manufacturers such as Samsung or HTC the responsibility of sending out the updates. Now that can spell disaster. That means when you have a Nexus phone and everyone else is getting updates from Google, you're going to have to wait for either Samsung or HTC to send out the update. So depending on the manufacturer's priority, we'll see how the Nexus versions of the Galaxy S4 and HTC One do. For me at this point, I think that having a vanilla version of the Galaxy S4 is kind of neat, but honestly, I think I'm just going to stay with the TouchWiz skinned version. If I want a real Nexus device, I will get a real Nexus device. As far as other features of the phone, just like the Galaxy Note 2, you do have this multi-window view. Just say that you need to find something on the internet, while at the same time you want to check your pictures or something. You're free to do both at the same time. You're able to change the size of the windows. You can also change the order in which you are looking at them. And then you can choose to have just full screen dominant view. There's also a variety of sensors inside this phone. If you go and check out part 1, I talk about what each of them are, and now I just want to show you a little bit about what they do. For air view, you are able to simply hover your finger above something like an image, and it will pull it up for you so that you get a preview. That way you don't actually have to go inside of the application. You can just simply get a view from there. You have a sensor in the screen that lets you just hover your finger over this display without touching it. You can see you get an air view of whatever it is you're looking at. You can also just slide within this and it brings you to the second, third, or fourth page of whatever it is that you are looking at. The one thing that I have a big complaint about is that you can hover over several different things. but you can't execute what it is that you're looking at, and it's not system-wide. So you can use it to get a preview and scroll through videos so that you don't have to actually change the place that you were at, and you don't have to lose that position. As soon as I let go, it returns right to where I was before, and I can continue looking at my video. I can also use it underneath text messages, where I can just float my finger and it will show me a little bit of what's going on in this particular text message. This air view can also be used inside this email application so that you can get a little bit of an air view of what's going on inside of that email. The one bummer is that it doesn't work with the Gmail application. So that's something that is just a little bit annoying and frustrating. You can also use AirView over very small links. Just say that you don't want to accidentally touch the wrong link. You can just hover your finger over it like such and it magnifies it for you. And now since it's selected, you can just go ahead and tap it. So that's something that I can see as quite useful. Air gesture works by running your hand over the sensor here, or you can just take your finger. You don't have to be waving your hand over it like this. It works in the gallery where you can simply go through your pictures, and air gesture also works in the web browser. If you take a look at this little hand that you have right here, it lets you go up and down or left and right. So if I go like this, you can see that I will scroll through the web page. If I go like this in front of the sensor, it will bring me forward in the web browser. If I move my hand in the other direction, it's going to go backward in the web browser. For pictures, this works quite well, but honestly, if you don't move your hand correctly over the sensor inside of the web browser, you might end up going backwards or forwards on accident when you just wanted to pan through the page. Features like Smart Scroll work by recognizing that your face is looking at the screen, and then when you tilt the device, it will go up and down. The thing is, it's kind of gimmicky. You need to be in absolute perfect lighting, and it just doesn't want to work sometimes, so it's something that's a little bit awkward to use. It's kind of cool, though, if you can get it to work when you need it to, right around your friends. Now, one of the features that I really like is called Smart Pause, and during video, it actually lets you look at the screen, and if you look away, it'll pause it. It works really well, actually. You just need to be in perfect lighting without shadows around you. So I'm looking at the camera right now. I'm going to turn my face and look at the screen. Immediately, it starts playing. And this works underneath the YouTube application. This also works underneath the default Samsung movie application. What it doesn't work, sadly, under is Netflix. I'm going to turn my face away again. See, look at that. Turn my face and look at it. Aha! It works! It works quite well. Turn away. See, is it not looking at it? So this would be something that's really nice if it worked underneath Netflix. What would be even nicer is if it could somehow recognize your face in the dark, because I like to watch a lot of content in the dark. I don't like to have a lot of ambient lighting that's causing issues with glare on my screen. For me, I honestly consider all of these nice features gimmicks, and they're things that I would actually never use, so I am just as happy to just disable all of them. But if it's something you fancy, why not? I, for one, would have personally just liked the extra gigabytes of space on my phone. So thank you everybody for watching. This has been Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can like me on Facebook. I'll put a link in the description. You can also follow me on Google Plus and Twitter. I should also put links in the description. Or you can get to those from my banner on my YouTube main channel page. Also, please visit my website, angeloftech.com. I will be posting updates and articles and things that just interest me there. I also have a forum, so if you have any questions, you can go onto the forum, ask them there. Either I will answer them, or whoever is available in the forums will answer them as well. So I hope that you have found this both informative and entertaining. I will be making one more final video. I will talk about the camera, the radios, battery life, and anything else that I can think of in that very final part. If you have any specific questions, now would be the time to ask them so I can address them then. Then I will be moving on to the HTC One, and I will do a full review of that. I think I'm going to return to my normal hour-long video format for this particular review. For me, with the internals, I really like the Exynos version, but right now, with what I'm seeing with some of the instability issues, I'd probably go with the Snapdragon, although I really say the Exynos is my favorite. So, have a good night, everyone. Bye!